Hello everyone, I'm Dillionaire, and we have another great episode of RWBY this time. So here are my thoughts and review for RWBY Volume 9, Episode 7, The Perils of Paper Houses. If you haven't seen the episode yet, I highly recommend doing so as I will be spoiling it. Let's get right into it. We open the episode with a giant paper lantern getting lit and all of our characters sleeping. Our newly formed Bumblebee pair are laying right next to each other. Aww. We pan to RWBY to see she isn't sleeping. Instead, she's just staring at Crescent Rose, lost in thought. A large crash echoes as Jaune jolts up, screaming, I'm late, having overslept from yesterday's excitement. I guess this makes Jaune our white rabbit. Who would have guessed that? The clocks from the last episode kinda made it obvious. Team RWBY is confused as to why Jaune seemingly expected this to happen, but they want to save whoever's in danger anyway, and they all jump into action. But RWBY doesn't have her weapon. They tell her to hurry up, and she begrudgingly picks it up. We get to town and see that the fires are all spreading, but also that the town is made entirely out of paper. A cute little paper star person greets them and seemingly doesn't care that everything is on fire. And it makes things even more confusing by wanting to serve them. It believes everything is fine because they have their hero, as Jaune jumps over the house on Juniper while putting out fires. All the Paper Star townsfolk cheer for Jaune as he stops them from burning and dissolving in water. He says it was close and it's been ages since he missed the first fire. RWBY's unsure what he means, and Jaune says that fires happen every day. He notices they're all confused, so he introduces the Paper Pleasers. Nice little guys who just want to please not only people, but the land they live on. I think it's great that even though they've seen so many crazy things in this world, it's only been one day, so they're not immune to the absurdity that happens here. While Jaune, on the other hand, who has spent almost his entire life here, doesn't even see anything wrong with it. Jaune explains that when Alex left him to die, Juniper went and found help, and the Paper Pleasers saved him, so he stayed with them and protected their village ever since. This eliminates the Lewis is Juniper theory, at least. It's revealed that Jaune has named every person in town after someone he knows from Remnant. The one he names after RWBY walks up and greets them, and everyone gets creeped out. This was a massive tug on the heartstrings for me. Naming these guys after people from Remnant is probably the only reason Jaune is still at least somewhat sane. It pains me to think about his lost time in the Ever After, and the thoughts of all his friends were all he had of his home. So far, the time we've spent with Jaune today really lets you into how broken he is from his time here. The way he jumps from one thing to the next, almost like he has no concise string of thoughts, really makes you feel that he is losing his mind from being here for so long. He says there's still time before the next disaster, so they get to go strategize. He lays out a map he's made, and it's every acre he's explored in the Ever After. Says it's his life's work. Actually thinking about it, it really is his life's work. This world has been his home far longer than Remnant has, and he's been trying to figure it out since he got here. We get to see the path we've taken so far and which acre connects to what. A lot of them aren't named, probably because Jaune hasn't explored them, or they aren't important, seeing as we only have 3 episodes remaining to get through these. Judging by this map, the place we're most likely headed next is the home of the Jabberwocker, and most likely Neo's base of operations. He says he's been looking for anyone or anything that could possibly bring them back home to Remnant. But he doesn't even have a single lead. And he still doesn't trust the tree. He's made a very, very long list of every tragedy that happens in the village every day in hopes that the team could help with something so he has more time to search for an exit. Some of the things on this list caught my eyes, such as fighting off a giant crow with RWBY, which is a great callback to the Nevermore fight in Volume 1. He also helps Pyrrha with her homework every day. What a great guy, that Jaune. But this definitely isn't a healthy coping mechanism. Finding a way home, however, is at the very bottom of the list. Jaune tries so hard to keep these little guys alive every day that he doesn't even have time for anything else. Team RWBY look like they've lost hope in this, and he tries to encourage them with his plan. Patience will pay off. He tries to convince the team and himself that he isn't crazy, and he leaves the room. Yang is upset with the schedule. Blake comforts her by saying that Jaune's been through a lot. Right now, he needs them, and they need him. But she doesn't think he's reliable anymore. I am a big fan of how aware Blake is on how much emotions matter and how they can shape a person. She doesn't see Jaune as lesser for being a little crazy. She understands what he's been through and knows that as his friends, they all need to be there for him. I'm currently rewatching the show, and being on Volume 2, it's great to see how far Blake has come. Weiss is aggravated because they need a guide, or they could get sent back in time or killed by the tree. A pleaser tells them that the great tree doesn't kill, and they try to tell their hero, Jaune, but he doesn't listen and keeps them from ascending. It says that their purpose has been fulfilled for a long time, and they want nothing more than to gain a new one by ascending. They want Team RWBY to understand that the tree simply resurrects and rebuilds. It doesn't kill. With this, they reveal that the paper pleasers themselves are behind every incident that happens to the village every day, because they desperately wish to return to the tree to ascend. Yeah, that is kinda dark. They're just trying to unalive themselves every day for years because they can feel the tree drawing them back, but Jaune doesn't want to let go of them because he's grown attached. This whole thing just feels like a mirror of what happened with Penny. They want to let go, but Jaune won't let them, not wanting to be responsible for more lives being lost that he could have prevented. It's a really heavy theme that we'll get more into later. Yang, being annoyed, says that Jaune doesn't know what happened at the tree because he wasn't there. The cat wasn't even there. They need to make him let the villagers go because they won't learn anything new just staying here. Weiss pretty much calls him crazy right when he walks in, and he's devastated that they think this way about him. He leaves the house angrily, and they chase after him, trying to get him to change his mind about the tree, but he doesn't budge. They say they're not listening to the cat, but to the Afterans themselves. They wish to ascend. He believes they shouldn't trust any Afteran at all, so Weiss asks him why he even cares about the village anyway. He replies with, "Because I can actually protect these people." Oh, Jaune. Poor, poor Jaune. You've had to endure so many failures that any success means so much to you. But we don't get much time to dwell on that line before a bunch of Jabberwockers appear. Jaune says he won't let the town down. Weiss, Blake, and Yang take action because if the walkers get to the village, the pleasers won't ascend. RWBY, however, can't move before she shrugs off to go join them. My first thought while I was watching here was that a walker was going to get by and devour one of the pleasers, and I was praying to God that it wasn't going to be the one he named Pyrrha. It would have hurt me if that happened. I still miss you, Pyrrha. You were my favorite as a kid. We get a pretty cool fight scene of everyone fighting off the walkers. Bumblebee team up to take some out using their quick movements and teamwork. I love how smooth they looked here, with Blake sliding under one and Yang flipping out of one's hand. Jaune and Weiss team up to fight a few with Weiss's summon and Juniper. Weiss catching and throwing back Jaune's weapon and him launching it through the walker with his shield was pretty cool. Jaune hasn't gotten worse over time. He might have even learned a thing or two. Even though everyone is fighting, RWBY is just standing there, holding an untransformed Crescent Rose, watching. She hasn't done anything yet. She's having a panic attack and her heart is beating quickly as a Jabberwocker just sneaks up on her. Its face morphs into cinders, then Penny's, and finally Salem's, essentially freezing RWBY with doubt and fear as it tackles her into the ground. Her team comes to her rescue, but she's still paralyzed with fear and wide-eyed, just barely able to sit up. The walker dissipates into an illusion of Neo, who taunts them with finger guns as she shatters. Yang wonders how the walker's Neo creates function like a real one, how she got so powerful. Jaune interrupts her and berates RWBY by saying she didn't do it by standing around. He knows she doesn't care about the village, but he thought she would at least help her friends when they're in danger. He picks up Crescent Rose and tries to shove it at her, but she flinches and jumps backwards as it falls to the ground, not even wanting to touch it. I'm glad we get to see this, because this is the first time everyone else really sees how much she's going through. She couldn't even bring herself to open her weapon, let alone touch it. She would have been eaten if they didn't save her. Yang tries to see what's wrong with RWBY, but she gets stopped by the rumbling of the townsfolk collapsing the Pebble Tower. Jaune is distressed, wondering what time it is as he rushes towards the village, but he's too late. It breaks the dam and floods the whole village, destroying every pleaser. He collapses to his knees, breaking down and muttering to himself that he couldn't save them. He had to save them. The only people that he's been able to save for years upon years are gone. I could barely even look at Jaune. I didn't want to see my boy so broken and tattered, blaming himself for every wrong thing that happens. Juniper, Blake, Yang, and Weiss try to comfort him and tell him that the pleasers aren't gone. They'll be back. This is what they wanted. Weiss tries to get RWBY to say something, but RWBY is having none of it. She wants to know why they're asking her. She has finally had enough. There's a point where it tips, there's a point where it breaks, there's a point where it bends, and a point we just can't take anymore. She starts ranting to them. Why is it that she has to pick people up when they're down? Because she's the leader? Why should she be? What about her? She goes to each one of them while progressively getting angrier. When she goes up to Blake and Yang, Blake hides behind her while she puts her arm out to comfort and shield her. RWBY brings up that she always has to be positive and smiling. She then makes it about Blake and Yang. Maybe even get our feelings sorted out. She scoffs. She belittles their newfound relationship by saying everyone is so happy for them. Yang gets angry, but RWBY asks if it's a bad time because they have to mourn Jaune's make-believe friends. That was Jaune's last straw. He snaps at her. They're gone because of you. The walkers came for you because Neo hates you. Oh, and let's not forget the reason we're in the Ever After in the first place is because of your plan that didn't work. What about you? It's all about you. He blames her for everything. Miles Luna's delivery of these lines was so good, and you can really feel the pent-up rage that Jaune has with every word. RWBY starts to tear up because she probably believes all of this to be true as well, but hasn't let her feelings out yet. Weiss steps in, and Jaune immediately regrets everything he said, knowing he isn't okay or in his right mind. But how is he supposed to be? He's been alone here for years. The bridge from the Volume 8 finale comes to mind. He screams that he was the only one that could do it. He had to kill her, and he has to live with that forever. Blake tries to lighten the mood by saying that she knows it seems bad, but shut up. RWBY just cuts her off. Don't do that. Just don't. Everyone is surprised that RWBY would act this way to her, and she looks away, grabs Crescent Rose, and taking Little with her, uses her semblance to fly away through the trees, running from them all. Weiss reaches out to her, but it's too late. Weiss, Blake, and Yang stare as they try to process what happened, while Jaune and Juniper simply look at the flooded village, mourning the villagers. End of episode. Yeah, that was a tough one. The way RWBY and Jaune go at each other's throat hurts not only the characters, but the people watching who've seen their whole journey. The themes of loss and unaliving are also really strong. Jaune doesn't want another life lost that he could have prevented so badly that he's scheduled every little detail that could go wrong and has been following it to a T. and he's just devastated when Team RWBY is on the Pleaser's side. He doesn't understand why they would want them to be gone too. Even if they want nothing more than to ascend. It's what Penny wanted too. But look what letting that happen did to him. The fact that he is so agonized after what he did to Penny, and rightfully so, just feels absolutely horrible, and I can understand why he goes to such lengths to protect these people. He's been trying his hardest to make it through every day while thinking about what he had to do. Their breakdowns left me speechless. I couldn't say anything or even formulate thoughts about it for like 10 minutes. It worked so well. This mental snap from both RWBY and Jaune has been a long time coming. It wouldn't be fair to blame them for it either. Jaune's points, while not wrong, also weren't fair to RWBY. What could she have done to prevent everything from happening while not knowing what would happen? And not being experienced enough to make these decisions that everyone wanted from her. She did her best, but her best wasn't good enough. She's just a kid, and the entire world relies on her to save it. She hasn't had time to deal with her trauma that has been building ever since Beacon. She got moved ahead 2 years and made a team leader in order to have her mature over the course of her training, but the academy fell before that. She's been bottling up everything until now, and it's finally sprung out. She can't take it anymore. Her points are harsh, but also valid to her experiences. I can't be mad at her for belittling Blake and Yang's relationship, because while it was rude and unfair, I can understand that while you're depressed, other people around you being happy and having a good time, while you feel the worst you've ever felt, can feel insulting, like they're not even caring about you at all. And I don't think RWBY meant to be malicious by telling Blake to shut up either. She just understands that false positivity won't get them anywhere because she's been doing the same thing this whole time. Although she couldn't have expected it, her false positivity got them all stuck in this mess, in another world with no leads on how to escape. The breakdown surprises everyone because they didn't see just how much RWBY was going through until she snapped on all of them. As her older sister, Yang is probably destroyed thinking about how much of RWBY's suffering went right under her nose. Although, out of everyone, Jaune can probably relate to what she's going through the most. The words of Ozpin in Volume 1 must have been echoing in her head for a long time. That being a leader is a badge you wear on you at all times, and if you aren't always performing at your best, what reason do you give others to follow you? I believe she's been trying to follow those words all this time and is just realizing the toll it took on her. She probably doesn't believe she has what it takes to be a team leader anymore. She's probably lost all faith in ever beating Salem. I wonder how she'll get out of this rut, and if she'll do it alone or with the team. Maybe she thinks she needs to ascend and she's headed for the tree to do it. Or maybe she'll find a newly ascended herbalist to show her a vision. Maybe she'll learn more about Summer's story. Weiss, Blake, Yang, and Jaune being together at the end is a great flip on what happened in Volume 4. Instead of RWBY joining Jaune's team, Jaune joined hers. I hope they're all thinking on what to say to her after hearing her points, and that they try to comfort Jaune a little too for what he's had to go through. I tried to figure out any combination of their names to make a color, but I'm not that creative. The closest I could come up with is by using their last names instead, and that would be Abyss or Beeswax. But these aren't really that good, and I don't think team names have ever used a last name before. Let me know if you find a team name for them instead. Now let's talk fights. The fights in this volume haven't been lackluster, but I know some people will want more fights with grander scale. But I'm mostly glad we've just been getting a bunch of time for our characters to grow and develop. It feels like Volume 9 has been about setting our characters up for the final stretch of the story, and getting all the doubts out of the way now is a perfect way to do so. RWBY have been knocking it out of the park with Volume 9 so far, and I've been loving it. I'm a bit worried on how this will wrap up within 3 episodes, as I don't think the Ever After will continue into Volume 10, but I think they'll pull it off nicely. My rating for this episode is a 7 out of 10. I got a 1 out of 3 on my predictions from last time, so let's see if I can do better this time. My predictions for the next episode are Team Beeswax, or whatever you want to call them, trying to find Ruby to no avail. Neo's escapades being shown to us. And Ruby being shown a vision of Summer Rose. What do you think will happen next episode? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, it means a lot. Please consider subscribing. My Bumblebee video is still in the works and should be coming soon. See you then.